Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Ni hao. Buenos dias. Heseche. Akwaba. Welcome. What up, though? This is the weekly recorded recitations of Holy Scriptures. Weekly Holy Scriptures recorded recitation. The date today is 724.8.24, semicolon 72, semicolon 1, nu 14. The portion for this week is portion número 32. Yo pongo, 31. Emor. Or Emor. And that includes, within the Torah, Emor, which is Vaikra 21:1 a 24:23. Within the Bhagavad Gita, it is the Kshetriya Yavi Bhaga Yogehe. Within numero 13, within the Digha Nikaya, it is the Mahasamaya Sutta. Mahasamaya Sutta. Say it again. Mahasamaya Sutta, numero 20. And within the Gospels, it is Luke 17 a 18. Within the Quran, it is Surah As-Safat, which is numero 37. Within the Tao Te Ching, it is chapters 19 a 24. Another brief side note. There is the intention of providing an additional, independently or a separate recording, a brief side note explaining the recitations and apparent anomalies and discrepancies or anything else that seem to exist within the recitations. That's intended for a separate recording. I have you to do that, so I just made that note of it. That being said, we continue on. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahu Abha. Deus noster qui es in celis, sanctificator nomen tuum, vahegu satnam. Dau kadau fehung dau. Ja. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam hamotzi lachem min haaretz. Kyrie eleison. Sivumastu savajagatehi. Sabe sata bavantu sukitata. Fagabia. Ubuntu. Shabono. Fekako. Akwaba upendo na amani. Woman Jeka. Shishe. Kamasunida. Domo arigato. Pilama yellow walking token. Talk adokushin good. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go with the God. Ata jamya yata afanami. Aho. Om shanti shanti shanti. Amen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahu Abha. Deus noster qui es in celis, sanctificator nomen tuum, vahegu satnam. Dau kadau fehung dau. Ja. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kitzanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'devar Torah. Kyrie eleison. Sivumastu savajagatehi. Sabe sata bavantu sukitata. Fagabia. Ubuntu. Shabono. Fekako. Akwaba upendo na amani. Woman Jeka. Shishe. Kamasunida. Domo arigato. Pilama yelo wakantaka. Talk adokushin good. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Go remit a God. Ata jamya yata afanami. Aho. Om shanti shanti shanti. Amen. Torah, Emor, Vaikra 21:1 a 24:23. And the Lord said to Moshe, Speak to the Kohanim, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, Let none of you defile himself for a dead person amongst his people, except for his relative who is close to him, his mor, his far, his son, his daughter, his brother, and for his virgin sister who is close to him, who was not yet with a man for her, he shall defile himself. But a husband shall not defile himself for a wife who causes his desecration whilst she is amongst his people. They shall not make bald patches on their heads, nor shall they shave the edge of their beard, nor shall they make cuts in their flesh. They shall be holy to their God, and they shall not desecrate their God's name, for they offer up the fire offerings of the Lord, the food offering of their God, so they shall be holy. They shall not marry a woman who is a prostitute or who is desecrated, and they shall not marry a woman who is divorced from her husband, for he, the Kohen, is holy to his God. You shall sanctify him, for he offers up the food offering of your God. He shall be holy to you, for I, the Lord who sanctifies you, am holy. If a Kohen's daughter becomes desecrated through adultery, she desecrates her far, she shall be burned in fire. And the Kohen who is elevated above his brothers, upon whose head the anointment oil has been poured, or who has been inaugurated to wear the garments, he shall not leave his hair unshorn or rend his garments. And he shall not come upon any dead bodies. He shall not defile himself for his far or his mor. He shall not leave the sanctuary, and he will not desecrate the holy things of his God, for the crown of his God's anointing oil is upon him. I am the Lord. He shall marry a woman in her virgin state. A widow, a divorcee, a woman who is desecrated, or a prostitute, he shall not marry any of these. Only a virgin of his people may he take as a wife. And he shall not desecrate his offspring amongst his people, for I am the Lord who sanctifies him. And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aaron, saying, Any man amongst your offspring throughout their generations who has a defect shall not come near to offer up his God's food. For any man who has a defect should not approach a blind man or a lame one, or one with a sunken nose or with mismatching limbs, or a man who has a broken leg or a broken arm, or one with long eyebrows, or a cataract, or a commingling in his eye, dry lesions or weeping sores, or one with crushed testicles. Any man amongst Aaron, the Kohen's offspring, who has a defect shall not draw near to offer up the Lord's fire offerings. There is a defect in him. He shall not draw near to offer up his God's food. His God's food from the most holy and from the holy ones he may eat. But he shall not come to the dividing curtain, nor shall he draw near to the altar, for he has a defect, and he shall not desecrate my holy things, for I am the Lord who sanctifies him. Moshe told this to Aaron and his sons, and to all of the children of Israel. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aaron and to his sons, that they shall separate themselves from the holy sacrifices of the children of Israel, which they sanctify to me, so as not to desecrate my holy name. I am the Lord. Say to them, Throughout your generations, any man amongst any of your offspring who, whilst his defilement is still upon him, comes near to the holy sacrifices that the children of Israel consecrate to the Lord, that soul shall be cut off from before me. I am the Lord. Any man whatsoever amongst Aaron's offspring, if he has tzara'at, or has had a discharge, he shall not eat of the holy sacrifices until he cleanses himself. And one who touches anyone who has become unclean by contact with a dead person, or a man from whom semen issued, or a man who touches any creeping creature through which he becomes unclean, or a person through whom he becomes unclean. Whatever his uncleanness, the person who touches it shall remain unclean until evening, and he shall not eat from the holy things unless he has immersed his flesh in water. When the soleil sets, he becomes clean, and afterwards he may eat of the holy things, for it is his food. He shall not eat a carcass or anything that was torn, thereby becoming unclean through it. I am the Lord. They shall keep my charge and not bear sin by eating it whilst unclean, and thereby die through it, since they will have desecrated it. I am the Lord who sanctifies them. No non-Kohen may eat holy things. A Kohen's resident and his hireling may not eat holy things. And if a Kohen acquires a person an acquisition through his money, he may eat of it, and those born in his house, they may eat of his food. And if a Kohen's daughter is married to a non-Kohen, she may no longer eat of the separated holy things. But if the Kohen's daughter becomes widowed or divorced, and she has no offspring, she may return to her father's household as in her youth, and eat of her father's food, but no non-Kohen may eat of it. And if a man unintentionally eats what is holy, he shall add a fifth of it to it, and give the Kohen the holy thing. And they shall not desecrate the holy things of the children of Israel, those that they have set aside for the Lord, thereby bringing upon themselves to bear iniquity and guilt, when they eat their holy things, for I am the Lord who sanctifies them. And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aaron and to his sons and to all the children of Israel, and say to them, Any man whatsoever from the house of Israel, or from the strangers amongst Israel, who offers up his sacrifice for any of their vows, or for any of their donations that they may offer up to the Lord as a burnt offering, to be favorable for you, it shall be an unblemished male from cattle, from sheep, or from goats. Any animal that has a blemish you shall not offer up, for it will not be favorable for you. And if a man offers up a peace offering to the Lord for declaring a vow, or as a donation from cattle or from the flock to be accepted, it shall be unblemished. It shall not have any defect in it. An animal that has blindness, or a broken bone, or a split eyelid or lip, or one that has warts or dry lesions or weeping sores, you shall not offer up any of these to the Lord, nor shall you place any of these as a fire offering upon the altar to the Lord. As for an ox or sheep that has mismatching limbs or uncloven hooves, you may make it into a donation, but as a vow it will not be accepted. Any animal whose testicles were squashed, crushed, pulled out, or severed, you shall not offer up to the Lord, and in your land you shall not do it. And from the hand of a Gentile you shall not offer up as food for your God any of these blemished animals, for their injury is upon them, there is a defect on them, they will not be accepted for you. And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, When an ox or a sheep or a goat is born, it shall remain under its moor for 7 days, and from the 8th day onwards it shall be accepted as a sacrifice for a fire offering to the Lord. An ox or sheep, you shall not slaughter it and its offspring in 1 day. And when you slaughter a thanksgiving offering to the Lord, you shall slaughter it, so that it should be acceptable for you. It shall be eaten on that day. Do not leave it over until Matin. I am the Lord. You shall keep my commandments and perform them. I am the Lord. You shall not desecrate my holy name. I shall be sanctified amidst the children of Israel. I am the Lord who sanctifies you, who took you out of the land of Egypt to be a God to you. I am the Lord. And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, The Lord's appointed holy days that you shall designate as holy occasions. These are my appointed holy days. For 6 days work may be performed, but on the 7th day it is a complete rest, a holy occasion. You shall not perform any work. It is a Shabbat to the Lord in all your dwelling places. These are the Lord's appointed holy days, holy occasions which you shall designate in their appointed time. In the first month, on the 14th of the month, in the afternoon, you shall sacrifice the Pesach offering to the Lord. And on the 15th day of that month is the festival of unleavened cakes to the Lord. You shall eat unleavened cakes for a 7-day period. On the first day there should be a holy occasion for you. You shall not perform any work of labor. And you shall bring a fire offering to the Lord for a 7-day period. On the 7th day there shall be a holy occasion. You shall not perform any work of labor. And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, When you come to the land which I am giving you, and you reap its harvest, you shall bring to the Kohen an omer of the beginning of your reaping. And he shall wave the omer before the Lord, so that it will be acceptable for you. The Kohen shall wave it on the day after the rest day. And on the day of your waving the omer, you shall offer up an unblemished lamb in its first year as a burnt offering to the Lord. Its meal offering shall be 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, a fire offering to the Lord as a spirit of satisfaction. And its libation shall be 1/4 of a hin of wine. You shall not eat bread or flour made from parched grain or fresh grain until this very day, until you bring your God's sacrifice. This is an eternal statute throughout your generations in all your dwelling places. And you shall count for yourselves from the manana of the rest day, from the day you bring the omer as a wave offering, 7 weeks. They shall be complete. You shall count until the day after the 7th week, namely the 50th day, on which you shall bring a new meal offering to the Lord. From your dwelling places you shall bring bread set aside, 2 loaves made from 2/10 of an ephah. They shall be of fine flour, and they shall be baked leavened, the first offering to the Lord. And associated with the bread you shall bring 7 unblemished lambs in their first year, 1 young bull and 2 rams. These shall be a burnt offering to the Lord, along with their meal offering and libations, a fire offering with a spirit of satisfaction to the Lord. And you shall offer up 1 he-goat as a sin offering, and 2 lambs in their first year as a peace offering. And the Kohen shall wave them in conjunction with the first offering bread as a waving before the Lord, along with the 2 lambs. They shall be holy to the Lord and belong to the Kohen. And you shall designate on this very day a holy occasion. It shall be for you. You shall not perform any work of labor. This is an eternal statute in all your dwelling places throughout your generations. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not completely remove the corner of your field during your harvesting, and you shall not gather up the gleanings of your harvest. Rather, you shall leave these for the poor person and for the stranger. I am the Lord your God. And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, on the 1st of the month, it shall be a Shabbat for you, a remembrance of Israel through the shofar blast, a holy occasion. You shall not perform any work of labor, and you shall offer up a fire offering to the Lord. And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, But on the 10th of this 7th month, it is a day of atonement. It shall be a holy occasion for you. You shall afflict yourselves, and you shall offer up a fire offering to the Lord. You shall not perform any work on that very day, for it is a day of atonement, for you to gain atonement before the Lord your God. For any person who will not be afflicted on that very day shall be cut off from its people. And any person who performs any work on that very day, I will destroy that person from amidst its people. You shall not perform any work. This is an eternal statute throughout your generations in all your dwelling places. It is a complete day of rest for you, and you shall afflict yourselves on the 9th of the month in the evening. From evening to evening you shall observe your rest day. And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, On the 15th day of this 7th month is the festival of Sukkot, a 7-day period to the Lord. On the first day it is a holy occasion. You shall not perform any work of labor. For a 7-day period you shall bring a fire offering to the Lord. On the 8th day it shall be a holy occasion for you, and you shall bring a fire offering to the Lord. It is a day of detention. You shall not perform any work of labor. These are God's appointed holy days, that you shall designate them as holy occasions, on which to offer up a fire offering to the Lord, burnt offering and meal offering, sacrifice and libations, the requirement of each day on its day. Apart from the Lord's Shabbatot, and apart from your gifts, and apart from all your vows, and apart from all your donations that you give to the Lord. But on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you gather in the produce of the land, you shall celebrate the festival of the Lord for a 7-day period. The first day shall be a rest day, and the 8th day shall be a rest day. And you shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of the hadar tree, date palm fronds, a branch of a braided tree, and willows of the brook. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God for a 7-day period. And you shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord for 7 days in the year. It is an eternal statute throughout your generations, that you celebrate it in the 7th month. For a 7-day period you shall live in booths. Every resident amongst the Israelites shall live in booths, in order that your ensuing generations should know that I had the children of Israel live in booths when I took them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And Moshe told the children of Israel these laws of the Lord's appointed holy days. And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Command the children of Israel, and they shall take to you pure olive oil crushed for lighting, to kindle the lamps continually. Outside the dividing curtain of the testimony in the tent of meeting, Aaron shall set it up before the Lord from evening to matin continually. This shall be an eternal statute for your generations. Upon the pure menorah he shall set up the lamps before the Lord continually, and you shall take fine flour and bake it into 12 loaves. Each loaf shall be made from 2/10 of an ephah of flour. And you place them in 2 stacks, 6 in each stack, upon the pure table before the Lord. And you shall place pure frankincense alongside each stack, and it shall be a reminder for the bread, a fire offering to the Lord. Each and every Shabbat day he shall set it up before the Lord to be there continuously from the children of Israel, an eternal covenant. And it shall belong to Aaron and his sons, and they shall eat it in a holy place, for it is holy of holies for him, amongst the fire offerings of the Lord, an eternal statute. Now the son of an Israelite woman, and he was the son of an Egyptian man, went out amongst the children of Israel, and they quarreled in the camp, this son of the Israelite woman and an Israelite man. And the son of the Israelite woman pronounced the divine name and cursed. So they brought him to Moshe. His mor's name was Shelomit, the daughter of Dibri of the tribe of Dan. They placed him in the guardhouse until his sentence would be specified to them by the word of the Lord. Then the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Take the blasphemer outside the camp, and all who heard his blasphemy shall lean their hands on his head, and the entire community shall stone him. And to the children of Israel you shall speak, saying, Any man who blasphemes his God shall bear his sin. And one who blasphemously pronounces the name of the Lord shall be put to death. The entire community shall stone him, convert and resident alike. If he pronounces the divine name, he shall be put to death. And if a man strikes down any human being, he shall be put to death. And one who slays an animal shall pay for it the value of a life for the life he took. And a man who inflicts an injury upon his fellow man, just as he did, so shall he be done to him, namely, fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Just as he inflicted an injury upon a person, so shall it be inflicted upon him. And one who injures an animal shall pay for it, and one who strikes a person shall be put to death. One law shall be exacted for you, for convert and resident alike, for I am the Lord your God. And Moshe told all this to the children of Israel. So they took the blasphemer outside the camp and stoned him. And the children of Israel did just as the Lord had commanded Moshe. Bhagavad Gita, Kesetra Yavi Bhaga Yogehem. Arjuna said, Prakriti and Purusha, the field and the knower of the field, knowledge and that which is to be known. All this, O Kesava, I desire to learn. Sri Krishna said, This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and he who knows it is called the knower of the field, by those who describe them. And know that I am the knower in all fields, O Bharata, and only the knowledge of the field and its knower do I regard as true knowledge. Hear briefly from me what the field is, what its nature is, what its modifications are, whence it comes, who its knower is, and what Brahman's powers are. All this has been sung by sages in many and different ways in various distinctive hymns, and also in well-reasoned and convincing passages indicative of Brahman. The great elements, I, consciousness, understanding, and the unmanifested, the 10 stories, the mind, the 5 objects of the senses, desire, hatred, pleasure, pain, the aggregate, intelligence, and fortitude. This, briefly stated, is the field together with its modifications. Humility, modesty, nonviolence, forbearance, and uprightness, service to the teacher, purity, steadfastness, and self-control. Dispassion towards sense objects, absence of ego, perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, sickness, and pain. Non-attachment, non-identification of self with children, wife, home, and the rest. Unvarying evenness of mind in the midst of agreeable and disagreeable events. Unswerving devotion to me through constant meditation of non-separation, resorting to solitude, aversion to the society of men. Constancy in the knowledge of the self and an insight into the object of the knowledge of truth. This is declared to be knowledge, and all that is contrary to it is ignorance. I will now describe that which ought to be known, through the knowing of which one attains eternal life. It is the Supreme Brahman, which is without beginning and is said to be neither being nor non-being. Its hands and feet are everywhere. Its eyes, heads, and faces are everywhere. Its ears are everywhere. Its existence envelops all. It shines through the functions of all the senses, and yet it is devoid of senses. It is unattached, and yet it sustains all. It is devoid of gunas, and yet it enjoys them. It is without and within all beings. It is unmoving and also moving. It is incomprehensible because it is subtle. It is distantly away, and yet it is near. It is indivisible, and yet it is, as it were, divided amongst beings. That noble Brahman is the sustainer of all beings, and also their devourer and generator. The light even of lights, it is said to be beyond darkness. As knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the goal of knowledge, it is set firm in the hearts of all. Thus briefly have been set forth the field and also knowledge and the object of knowledge. My devotee who understands this becomes worthy of my state. Know that Prakriti and Purusha are both without beginning, and know too that all forms and gunas are born of Prakriti. Prakriti is said to be the cause of the generation of the body and the organs, and Purusha is said to be the cause of the experience of pleasure and pain. Purusha, embodied in Prakriti, experiences the gunas born of Prakriti. It is attachment to these gunas that is the cause of Brahman's birth in benevolence and evil wombs. The Supreme Spirit in the body is said to be the one who is the witness and the approver, the supporter and the enjoyer, and who is the sovereign, master, and the highest self. He who thus knows Purusha and Prakriti, along with the gunas, is not born again, howsoever he may comport himself. Some by meditation perceive the self in themselves through the mind, some by devotion to knowledge, and some by devotion to work. And there are yet some who do not know it by these means. They hear of it from others and worship. They too pass beyond death through their devotion to what they have heard. Whatever is born, whether animate or inanimate, know, O Bharata Prince, that it is through union of the field and the knower of the field. He who sees the Supreme Lord abiding alike in all beings and not perishing when they perish, verily he alone sees. Because he sees the Lord present alike everywhere, he does not injure self by self, and thus he reaches the supreme state. He who sees that all actions are done only by Prakriti and that the self is actionless, verily he alone sees. When he sees that the manifold nature of beings is centered in the one and that all evolution is from that one alone, he becomes one with Brahman. Having no beginning and possessing no gunas, this supreme and imperishable self, O son of Kunti, neither acts nor is stained by action even whilst dwelling in the body. As the akasha that pervades all things is not strained because of its subtlety, even so the self dwelling in the body everywhere is not stained. As the one soleil illumines the whole world, so does Brahman who dwells in the body, O Brata, illumine the whole body. They who perceive with the eye of wisdom this distinction between field and the knower of the field, and also the deliverance from Prakriti, the cause of all beings, they attain the supreme. Mahasamaya Sutta, numero 20. Dignikaya, Mahasamaya Sutta, numero 20. Thus have I heard. At one time the gracious one was dwelling amongst the Sakyans in the great wood near Kapilavatthu, and with a great sangha of monks consisting of 500 monks, all of them worthy ones, and almost all of the celestial beings from the 10 world elements had assembled to see the gracious one and the sangha of monks. Then this occurred to the 4 celestial beings from amongst the hosts in the pure abodes. The gracious one is dwelling amongst the Sakyans in the great wood near Kapilavatthu, with a great sangha of monks consisting of 500 monks, all of them worthy ones, and almost all of the celestial beings from the 10 world elements have assembled to see the gracious one and the sangha of monks. Well now, we too could approach the gracious one, and after approaching the gracious one, we could recite a verse each in his presence. Then those celestial beings, just as a strong man might stretch out a bent arm or bend it in a outstretched arm, in the same way disappeared from amongst the celestial beings of the pure abodes, and appeared in front of the gracious one. Then those celestial beings, after honoring the gracious one, stood on one side. While standing on one side, one of the celestial beings recited this verse in the presence of the gracious one. There is a great convention in the wood, and a host of celestial beings have come. We have come to this Dharma convention to see the Sangha, who are undefeated. Then another celestial being recited this verse in the presence of the gracious one. In this place the monks are concentrated. They have straightened out their minds by themselves, like a charioteer who has taken the reins. The wise protect their sense faculties. Then another celestial being recited this verse in the presence of the gracious one. Having cut off the hindrance and obstacle and dug up the locking post, they are unmoved. They live pure and unstained young Nagas, well tamed by the visionary. Then another celestial being recited this verse in the presence of the gracious one. Whoever has gone to the Buddha for refuge will not go to the lower worlds. After giving up the human body, they will fill up the ranks of the celestial beings. Then the gracious one addressed the monks, saying, Monks, almost all of the angels, almost all the celestial beings from the 10 world elements have assembled to see the realized one and the Sangha of monks. Monks, those who in the past were worthy ones, perfect Sambuddhas, for those gracious ones also at least as many celestial beings have assembled as for me at the present time. Monks, those who in the future will be worthy ones, perfect Sambuddhas, for those gracious ones also at least as many as celestial beings will assemble as for me at the present time. Monks, I will declare the names of the host of celestial beings. Monks, I will proclaim the names of the host of celestial beings. Monks, I will reveal the names of the host of celestial beings. Listen to it, apply your minds well, and I will speak. Yes, Reverend Sir, those monks replied to the gracious one, and the gracious one said this. I will repeat a famous verse, a sloka, wherever the celestial beings of the earth live. There are monks who live in a hill cave, who are resolute, composed, who are like lions crouching, who have overcome all horror with minds that are cleansed and purified, which are clear and undisturbed. He knew there were further than 500 in the wood near Kapilavatthu like this. Therefore the teacher addressed those disciples who delight in the teaching. A host of celestial beings have drawn near to us. You should know who they are, monks. Then those monks became ardent after hearing the Buddha's teaching, and knowledge was manifest to them, seeing those non-human beings, and some of them saw 100, 1,000, or 70,000. Some of them saw 100,000 of those non-human beings, and some saw an endless number spread out in every direction. Having deep knowledge of all that the visionary desired to speak, therefore the teacher addressed those disciples who delight in the hearing. A host of celestial beings have drawn near to us. You should know who they are, monks. I will proclaim their names to you with lyrics in regular order. There are 7,000 yakas, earth celestial beings from Kapilavatthu, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. From the Hemavant, there are 6,000 yakas, diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. From Satagira, there are 3,000 yakas, diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. Like this, there are 16,000 yakas, diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. From Vesamita, there are 500 yakas, diverse in color, who have psychic powers, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. From Rajagaha, there is Kambira, who is settled on Vipula, and further than 100,000 yakas who gather around him. From Rajagaha, there is Kumbirahe, also came to the gathering in the wood. The easterly direction, the king Datarata rules over that. He is the master of the Gandharvas. He is a resplendent great king. Also there are his many sons, Inda by name, ones of great wealth, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. The southerly direction, the king Virula rules over that. He is the master of Kambandas. He is a resplendent great king. Also there are his many sons, Inda by name, ones of great strength, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. The westerly direction, the king Varupaka rules over that. He is master of the Nagas. He is a resplendent great king. Also there are his many sons, Indra by name, ones of great strength, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks and in the wood. The northerly direction, the king Kuvera rules over that. He is the master of the yakas. He is a resplendent king. Also there are his many sons, Indra by name, ones of great strength, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. To the east there is Datarata. In the south there is Vulaka. In the west there is Virupaka. To the north there is Kovera. These are the four great kings from all sides. The four directions, they stood blazing brilliantly in the wood near Kapilavatthu. Their deceitful servants came, who are fraudulent and treacherous. The deceitful Kutenda, Vetendu, Vituka, and Vituda. Kandana and Kamaseta, Kinuganda and Nigandu, Pandava and Opamanya, and Matali, the celestial charioteer. The Gandhavas, Chita and Sena, the kings Nala and Jana Sabachani, and also Panchasika, Tambaru, and Suriva Chasa, these and also other kings, and Gandhavas along with their kings. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. Then came Nagas from Nabasa and from Vesali, and the Tachakas, the Kambalas, and the Asataras came, and Nagas from the Payaga with their kin. The Yamuna and the Datarata Nagas came, resplendent ones, and Eravana, the great Naga, the great Naga. He also came to the gathering in the wood. Those who carry away the Naga kings by force, the holy, twice-born winged ones with clear vision. Through the air they came and arrived in the wood, the Chitras and Supanas, such are their names. But at that time the Naga kings were without fear, for the Buddha made them safe from the Supanas. Calling on one another with gentle words, the Nagas and Supanas took refuge in the Buddha. Defeated by Vajirahata, the Asuras live in the ocean. They are brothers of Vasava, having psychic power resplendent. The very fearful Kalakanjas, the Vegasa, Asuras, Vipachiti, and Suchiti Paharada, together with Namuchi and 100 of Bali's sons, all of them named after Viroka. Having armed themselves, Bali's army came to Lucky Rahu and said, "Now is the time, reverend sir, for the gathering of the monks in the wood." The water celestial beings and the earth celestial beings, the fire and the wind celestial beings, all came there, the Varuna and Varuna celestial beings. Some, followed by Yasa and a host of fairy and compassionate angels, came, resplendent ones. All of these 10 hosts, 10 kinds of celestial beings, who are diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent, rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. The Venu and Sahali and Asama angels and the 2 Yama angels came. The angels who depend on the moon came, with the moon in front of them. The angels who depend on the soleil came, with the soleil in front of them. With the stars in front of them, also the foolish rain cloud angels came. The rain cloud celestial beings came. Saka also came, who is called Vasava, the best of the Vasu and the Purindada. All of these 10 hosts, 10 kinds of celestial beings, who are diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent, rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. Then came the Sahabu celestial beings, blazing forth like the crest of a fire, and the Aritakas and Rojas and the splendid Umapupa celestial beings. The Varunas and the Sahadamas, the Achutas and Anejatkas, the Sulyas and Ruchiras all came. The Vanasi celestial beings came. All of those 10 hosts, 10 kinds of celestial beings, who are diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent, rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. The Samanas, Mahasamanas, Manusas, Manusutamas, and the Kidapadusikas came. The Manu Padusikas came. Atugum Harayo Deva Yecha Lohita Vasino Paraga Mahaparaga Agun Deva Yasasino Dasite Dasada Kaya Sabe Nanatavanino Idemanto Ujuditmanto Vanavanto Yasasino Madamanya Abikamum Bhikshu Samitu Vanam Sukha Karamba Aruna Agum Veganas Saha Odata Gaya Pamuka Hagum Deva Vichakana. Sada. We begin again. Dikinikaya, Mahasamaya Sutta, numero 20. Thus I have heard. At one time the Gracious One was dwelling amongst the Sakyans in the great wood near Kapilavatu, with a great Sangha of monks consisting of 500 monks, all of them worthy ones. And almost all of the celestial beings from the 10 world elements had assembled to see the Gracious One and the Sangha of monks. Then this occurred to the 4 celestial beings from amongst the hosts in the pure abodes. The Gracious One is dwelling amongst the Sakyans in the great wood near Kapilavatu, with a great Sangha of monks consisting of 500 monks, all of them worthy ones, and almost all of the celestial beings from the 10 world elements have assembled to see the Gracious One and the Sangha of monks. Well now, we too could approach the Gracious One, and after approaching the Gracious One, we could recite a verse each in his presence. Then those celestial beings, just as a strong man might stretch out a bent arm, or bend in a outstretched arm, in the same way disappeared from amongst the celestial beings of the pure abodes and appeared in front of the Gracious One. Then the celestial beings, after honoring the Gracious One, stood on one side. While standing on one side, one of the celestial beings recited this verse in the presence of the Gracious One. There is a great convention in the wood, and a host of celestial beings have come. We have come to see this Dhamma convention, see the Sangha, who are undefeated. Then another celestial being recited this verse in the presence of the Gracious One. In this place the monks are concentrated. They have straightened out their minds by themselves. Like a charioteer who has taken the reins, the wise protect their sense faculties. Then another celestial being recited this verse in the presence of the Gracious One. Having cut off the hindrance and obstacle, and dug up the locking post, they are unmoved, they live pure and unstained, young Nagas, well tamed by the visionary. Then another celestial being recited this verse in the presence of the Gracious One. Whoever has gone to the Buddha for refuge will not go to the lower worlds. After giving up the human body, they will fill up the ranks of the celestial beings. Then the Gracious One addressed the monks, saying, Monks, almost all of the celestial beings from the 10 world elements have assembled to see the realized one and the Sangha of monks. Monks, those who in the past were worthy ones, perfect Sambuddhas, for those gracious ones also at least as many celestial beings have assembled as for me at the present time. Monks, those who in the future will be worthy ones, perfect Sambuddhas, for those gracious ones also at least as many celestial beings will assemble as for me at the present time. Monks, I will declare the names of the host of celestial beings. Monks, I will proclaim the names of the host of celestial beings. Monks, I will reveal the names of the host of celestial beings. Listen to it, apply your minds well, and I will speak. Yes, Reverend Sir, those monks replied to the Gracious One, and the Gracious One said this. I will repeat a famous verse, a sloka, wherever the celestial beings of the earth live. There are monks who live in a hill cave, who are resolute, composed, who are like lions crouching, who have overcome all horror, with minds that are cleansed and purified, which are clear and undisturbed. He knew there were further than 500 in the wood near Kapilavatu like this. Therefore the teacher addressed those disciples who delight in the teaching. A host of celestial beings have drawn near to us. You should know who they are, monks. Then those monks became ardent after hearing the Buddha's teaching, and knowledge was manifest to them, seeing those non-human beings. And some of them saw 100, 1,000, or 70,000. Some of them saw 100,000 of those non-human beings, and some saw an endless number spread out in every direction. Having deep knowledge of all that the visionary desired to speak, therefore the teacher addressed those disciples who delight in the teaching. A host of celestial beings have drawn near to us. You should know who they are, monks. I will proclaim their names to you with lyrics in regular order. There are 7,000 yakas, earth celestial beings from Kapilavatu, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. From Hamavant, there are 6,000 yakas, diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. From Satagira, there are 3,000 yakas, diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. Like this, there are 16,000 yakas, diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. From Vesamita, there are 500 yakas, diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. From Rajagaha, there is Kumbira, who is settled on Vepula, and further than 100,000 yakas who gather round him. From Rajagaha, there is Kumbirahe, also came to the gathering in the wood. The easterly direction, the king Datarata rules over that. He is master of the Gandhabas. He is a resplendent great king. Also there are his many sons, Inda by name, ones of great strength, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. The southerly direction, the king Varula rules over that. He is the master of the Kumbandas. He is a resplendent great king. Also there are his many sons, Inda by name, ones of great strength, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. The westerly direction, the king Virupaka rules over that. He is master of the Nagas. He is a resplendent great king. Also there are his many sons, Inda by name, ones of great strength, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. The northerly direction, the king Kuvera rules over that. He is master of the Yakas. He is a resplendent great king. Also there are his many sons, Inda by name, ones of great strength, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent. Rejoicing, they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. To the east there is Datarata. In the south there is Virulaka. In the west there is Virupaka. To the north there is Kuvera. These are the four great kings from all sides, the four directions. They stood blazing brilliantly in the wood near Kapilavatu. Their deceitful servants came, who are fraudulent and treacherous. The deceitful Kutendu, Vetendu, Vitucha, and Vituda. Kandana and Kamaseta, Kinugandu and Negandu, Panada and Upamanya and Matali, the celestial beings' charioteer. The Gandhabas, Chita and Sena, the kings Natnala and Janasabachame. And also Panchasika and Timbaru and Suruyavachasa. These and also other kings and Gandhabas along with their kings, rejoicing they have drawn near the Gandhabas, Chita and Sena, the kings Nala and Janasaba came, and also Panchasika, Timbaru, and Suruyavachasa. These and also other kings and Gandhabas along with their kings, rejoicing they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. Then came Nagas from Nabasa and from Vesali, and the Tachakas, the Kambalas and Asataras came, and Nagas from Payaga with their kin. The Yamuna and the Datarata Nagas came, resplendent ones, and Eravana, the great Naga, he also came to the gathering in the wood. Those who carried away the Naga kings by force, the holies, twice-born winged ones, with clear vision through the air they came and arrived in the wood. The Chitras and Supanas, such are their names. But at that time the Naga kings were without fear, for the Buddha made them safe from the Supanas. Calling on one another with gentle words, the Nagas and Supanas took refuge in the Buddha. Defeated by Vajirahata, the Asuras live in the ocean. They are brothers of Vasava, having psychic power resplendent. The very fearful Kalakanjas, the Dana Vegasa Asuras, Vipachiti and Suchiti, Baharada together with Namuchi, and 100 of Bali's sons, all of them named after Avarocha. Having armed themselves, Bali's army came to lucky Rahu and said, "Now is the time, Reverend Sir, for the gathering of the monks in the wood." The water celestial beings and earth celestial beings, the fire and the wind celestial beings all came. The Varuna and Varuna celestial beings, Soma followed by Yasa, and a host of friendly and compassionate celestial beings came, resplendent ones. All of these 10 hosts, 10 kinds of celestial beings who are diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent, rejoicing they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. The Venu and Sahali and Asama celestial beings and the 2 Yama celestial beings came. The celestial beings who depend on the moon came, and the moon in front of them. The celestial beings who depend on the Soleil came, and the Soleil in front of them. With the stars in front of them, also the foolish rain cloud celestial beings came. Saka also came, who is called Vasava, the best of the Vasu, and Purundada. All of these 10 hosts, 10 kinds of celestial beings who are diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent, rejoicing they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. Then came Sahabu, celestial beings blazing forth like the crest of a fire, and Aritakas and Rojas, and the resplendent Umapupa, celestial beings. The Varunas and Sahadamas, the Achutas and Anajakas, the Suleyas and Ruchiras all came. The Vasavanasi celestial beings came. All of these 10 hosts, 10 kinds of celestial beings who are diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent, rejoicing they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. Mahasamanas, Manusas, Manusutamas, and the Kidapadusikas came. The Manopadusikas came. Then the Hari celestial beings came, and those known as the Lohotavasi, the Paragas and the Mahaparagas came, celestial beings who are resplendent. All of these 10 hosts, 10 kinds of celestial beings who are diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent, rejoicing they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. The Sukas, Karumas, and Arunas came, and the Veganasas, the Vichakana celestial beings came with the Odatagayas in front, the Sadamatas, Haragajas, and the resplendent Masakas. Pajuna came thundering, he who pours down rain in all directions. All of these 10 hosts, 10 kinds of celestial beings who are diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent, rejoicing they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. The Kimiyas, Tusitas, Yamas, and resplendent Katakas came. The Lambitakas, Lamasetas, those called the Jyotis and Asavas, and the Nimanaratis came. Then came the Parinamitas. All of these 10 hosts, 10 kinds of celestial beings who are diverse in color, who have psychic power, who are bright, beautiful, and resplendent, rejoicing they have drawn near the gathering of monks in the wood. All of these 60 hosts of celestial beings who are diverse in color, in conformity with their names, came. These, along with others similar thinking. We shall see the casteless Sangha, unhindered flood crossers, pollution-free, and the Naga, who is beyond the flood, who, like the moon, has overcome the darkness. Subrahma and Paramata, along with the sons of the powerful one, came. Sanam, Kumara, and Tasalso, and Tisa also came to the gathering in the wood. In the 1,000 Brahma worlds, a great Brahma has arisen, a bright one who stands out, whose awesome body is resplendent. The 10 Isara Brahmas came, who individually wield power, and in the midst of them came Harita with his entourage. Now when they all had drawn near, Inda with the celestial beings and the Brahmas, Mara's army also drew near. Behold, the foolish one of the dark one. Come now, seize them, and bind them, he said. Let them be bound by passion, surround them all on one side. On all sides, do not let any one of them go free. Thus, in that place, the great army leader sent forth his dark army after striking the ground with his hand and making a fearful noise, like a storm cloud shedding rain, thundering with flashes of lightning. But then he retreated angry and unable to control himself. Knowing all that was happening, the visionary decided to speak. Therefore the teacher addressed those disciples who delight in the teaching. Mar's army has drawn near to us. You should know who they are, monks. Then those monks became ardent after hearing the Buddha's teaching. They withdrew from the passionless monks. Not one of their hairs was shaken. They are all victorious in battle, beyond fear and resplendent. Those disciples, famous amongst men, along with all beings, are glad. Gospels, Luke 17-18. Jesus said to his disciples, "Things that cause people to stumble are bound to come, but woe to anyone through whom they come. It would be better for them to be thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around their neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. So watch yourselves. If your brother or sister sins against you, rebuke them, and if they repent, forgive them. If they sin against you 7 times in a day, and 7 times come back to you saying, 'I repent,' you must forgive them." The apostle said to the master, "Increase our faith." He replied, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it will obey you. Suppose one of you has a servant plowing or looking after the sheep. Will he say to the servant when he comes in from the field, 'Come along now and sit down to eat'? Won't he rather say, 'Prepare my supper, get yourself ready and wait on me whilst I eat and drink. After that you may eat and drink'? Will he thank the servant because he did what he was told to do? So you also, when you have done everything you were told to do, should say, 'We are unworthy servants, we have only done our duty.'" Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Rise and go, your faith has made you well." Once, on being asked by the Pharisees when the sovereignty of God would come, Jesus replied, "The coming of the sovereignty of God is not something that can be observed. Nor will people say, 'Here it is,' or 'There it is,' because the sovereignty of God is in your midst." Then he said to his disciples, "The time is coming when you will long to see one of the days of the Son of Man, but you will not see it. People will tell you, 'There he is,' or 'Here he is.' Do not go running off after them. For the Son of Man in his day will be like the lightning which flashes and lights up the sky from one end to the other. But first he must suffer many things and be rejected by this generation. Just as it was in the days of Noah, so also will it be in the days of the Son of Man." People were eating, drinking, marrying, and being given in marriage up to the day Noah entered the ark. Then the flood came and destroyed them all. It was the same in the days of Lot. People were eating and drinking, buying and selling, planting and building. But the day Lot left Sodom, fire and sulfur rained down from heaven and destroyed them all. It will be just like this on the day the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, no one who is on the housetop with possessions inside should go down to get them. Likewise, no one in the field should go back for anything. Remember Lot's wife. Whoever tries to keep their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life will preserve it. I tell you, on that night, 2 people will be in one bed, one will be taken and the other left. 2 women will be grinding grain together, one will be taken and the other left. "Where, Master?" they asked. He replied, "Where there is a dead body, there the vultures will gather." Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. He said, "In a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, 'Grant me justice against my adversary.' For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, 'Even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice so that she won't eventually come and attack me." And the master said, "Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for God's chosen ones who cry out to God day and night? Will God keep putting them off? I tell you, God will see that they get justice and end quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, he will find faith. Will he find faith on the earth?" To some who were confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everyone else, Jesus told this parable. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, "God, I thank you that I am not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week and give 1/10 of all I get." But the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. People were also bringing babies to Jesus for him to place his hands on them. When the disciples saw this, they rebuked them. But Jesus called the children to him and said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the sovereignty of God belongs to such as these. Truly I tell you, anyone who will not receive the sovereignty of God like a little child, will never enter it." A certain ruler asked him, "Benevolent teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "Why do you call me benevolent?" Jesus answered. "No one is benevolent except God alone. You know the commandments. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not murder. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony. Honor your father," and more. "All these I have kept since I was a boy," he said. When Jesus heard this, he said to him, "You still lack one thing. Sell everything you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." When he heard this, he became very sad because he was very wealthy. Jesus looked at him and said, "How hard it is for the rich to enter the sovereignty of God. Indeed, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the sovereignty of God." Those who heard this asked, "Who then can be saved?" Jesus replied, "What is impossible with man is possible with God." Peter said to him, "We have left all we had to follow you." "Truly I tell you," Jesus said to them, "no one who has left home or wife or brothers or sisters or parents or children for the sake of the sovereignty of God will fail to receive many times as much in this age and in the age to come eternal life." Jesus took the 12 aside and told them, "We are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written by the prophets about the Son of Man will be fulfilled. He will be delivered over to the Gentiles. They will mock him, insult him, and spit on him. They will flog him and kill him. On the 3rd day he will rise again." The disciples did not understand any of this. Its meaning was hidden from them, and they did not know what he was talking about. As Jesus approached Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard the crowd going by, he asked what was happening. They told him, "Jesus of Nazareth is passing by." He called out, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." Those who led the way rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the further, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and ordered the man to be brought to him. When he came near, Jesus asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" "Master, I want to see," he replied. Jesus said to him, "Receive your sight. Your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus, praising God. When all the people saw it, they also praised God. Quran, Surah As-Safat, número 37. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. By those who range themselves in ranks, and so are strong in repelling evil, and thus proclaim the message of Allah. Verily, verily, your Allah is one, Lord of the heavens and of the earth and all between them, and Lord of every point at the rising of the soleil. We have indeed decked the lower heaven with beauty in the stars, for beauty and for guard against all obstinate, rebellious, evil spirits. So they should not strain their ears in the direction of the exalted assembly, but be cast away from every side, repulsed, for they are under a perpetual penalty, except such as snatch away something by stealth, and they are pursued by a flaming fire of piercing brightness. Just ask their opinion. Are they the further difficult to create, or the other beings we have created? Them have we created out of a sticky clay. Truly dost thou marvel, whilst they ridicule, and when they are admonished pay no heed. And when they see a sign, turn it to mockery, and say, This is nothing but evident sorcery. What, when we die and become dust and bones, shall we then be raised up again? And also our fathers of old? Say thou, Yea, and ye shall then be humiliated on account of your evil. Then it will be a single compelling cry, and behold, they will begin to see. They will say, Ah, woe to us, this is the day of judgment. A voice will say, This is the day of sorting out, this is the day of sorting out, whose truth ye once denied. Whose truth ye once denied. Bring ye up, it shall be said, the wrongdoers and their wives and the things they worshipped, besides Allah, and lead them to the way to the fierce fire. But stop them, for they must be asked, What is the matter with you that ye help not each other? Nay, but that day they shall submit to a judgment, and they will turn to one another and question one another. They will say, It was ye who used to come to us from the right hand of power and authority. They will reply, Nay, ye yourselves had no faith, nor had we any authority over you. Nay, it was ye who were a people in obstinate rebellion. So now has been proved true against us the word of our Lord, that we shall indeed have to taste the punishment of our sins. We led you astray, for truly we were ourselves astray. Truly that day they will all share in the penalty. Verily that is how we shall deal with sinners. For they, when they were told that there is no deity except Allah, would puff themselves up with pride, and say, What, shall we give up our deities for the sake of a poet possessed? Nay, he has come with the very truth, and he confirms the message of the apostles before him. Ye shall indeed taste of the grievous penalty. But it will be no further than the retribution of the evil that ye have wrought. But the sincere and devoted servants of Allah, for them is a sustenance determined, fruits, delights, and they shall enjoy honor and dignity, in gardens of felicity, facing each other on thrones of dignity. Round will be passed to them a cup from a clear flowing fountain, crystal white, of a taste delicious to those who drink thereof, free from headiness, nor will they suffer intoxication therefrom. And besides them will be chaste women, restraining their glances with big eyes of wonder and beauty, as if they were delicate eggs closely guarded. Then they will turn to one another and question one another. One of them will start the talk and say, I had an intimate companion on the earth who used to say, What, art thou amongst those who bear witness to the truth of the message? When we die and become dust and bones, shall we indeed receive rewards and punishments? A voice said, Would ye like to look down? He looked down and saw him in the midst of the fire. He said, By Allah, thou wast little short of bringing me to perdition. Had it not been for the grace of my Lord, I should certainly have been amongst those brought there. Is it the case that we shall not die, except our first death, and that we shall not be punished? Verily, this is the supreme achievement. For the like of this let all strive, who wish to strive. Is that the better attainment, or the tree of Zakum? For we have truly made it as a trial for the wrongdoers. For it is a tree that springs out of the bottom of hellfire. The shoots of its fruit stalks are like the heads of devils. Truly they will eat thereof and fill their bellies therewith. Then on top of that they will be given a mixture made of boiling water. Then shall their return be to the blazing fire. Truly they found their fathers on the wrong path. So they too were rushed down on their footsteps. And truly before them many of the ancients went astray, but we sent aforetime amongst them apostles to admonish them. Then see what was the end of those who were admonished, but he did not, except the sincere and devoted servants of Allah. In the days of old, Noah cried to us, and we are the best to hear prayer. And we delivered him and his people from the great calamity, and made his progeny to endure on this earth. And we left this offspring for him amongst generations to come in later times. Peace and salutations to Noah amongst the nations. Thus indeed do we reward those who do right, for he was one of our believing servants. Then the rest we overwhelmed in the flood. Verily amongst those who followed Allah's way was Abraham. Behold, he approached his Lord with a sound heart. Behold, he said to his father and to his people, What is it that which ye worship? Is it a falsehood, deities other than Allah, that ye desire? Then what is your idea about the Lord of the worlds? Then did he cast a glance at the stars, and he said, I am indeed sick at heart. So they turned away from him and departed. Then did he turn to their deities and said, Will ye not eat of the offerings before you? What is the matter with you, that ye speak not intelligently? Then did he turn upon them, striking them with the right hand. Then came the worshippers with hurried steps and faced him. He said, Worship ye that which ye have yourselves carved, but Allah has created you and your handiwork and your handwork. They said, Build him a furnace and throw him into the blazing fire. This failing, then sought a stratagem against him, but we made them the ones most humiliated. He said, I will go to my Lord. Allah will surely guide me. O my Lord, grant me a righteous son. So we gave him the benevolent news of a boy ready to suffer and forbear. Then, when the son reached the age of serious work with him, he said, O my son, I see in vision that I offer thee in sacrifice. Now see what is thy view. The son said, O my father, do as thou art commanded. Thou wilt find me, if Allah so wills, one practicing patience and constancy. So when they had both submitted their wills to Allah, and he had laid him prostrate on his forehead for sacrifice, we called out to him, O Abraham, thou hast already fulfilled the vision. Thus indeed do we reward those who do right. For this was obviously a trial. We ransomed him with a momentous sacrifice, and we left this blessing for him amongst generations to come in later times. Peace and salutations to Abraham. Salam and salutations to Abraham. Thus indeed do we reward those who do right. For he was one of our believing servants, and we gave him the benevolent news of Yitzhak, a prophet, one of the righteous. We blessed him in Yitzhak, but of their progeny are some that do right, and some that obviously do wrong to their own souls. Again of old we bestowed our favor on Moshe and Aaron, and we delivered them and their people from their great calamity, and we helped them so they overcame their troubles. And we gave them the book which helps to make things clear. And we guided them to the straight way, and we left this blessing for them amongst generations to come in later times. Salam and salutations to Moshe and Aaron. Thus indeed do we reward those who do right, for they were two of our believing servants. So was Elias amongst those sent by us. Before he said to his people, Will ye not fear Allah? Will ye call upon Baal and forsake the best of creators? Allah, your Lord and Cherisher, and the Lord and Cherisher of your fathers of old. But they rejected him, and they will certainly be called up for punishment, except the sincere and devoted servants of Allah amongst them. And we left this blessing for him amongst generations to come in later times. Salam and salutations to such as Elias. Thus indeed do we reward those who do right, for he was one of our believing servants. So also was Lut amongst those sent by us. Behold, we delivered him and his adherents all, except an old woman who was amongst those who lagged behind. Then we destroyed the rest. Verily ye pass by their sights by day, and by night will ye not understand? And by night will ye not understand? So also was Jonah amongst those sent by us, when he ran away like a slave from captivity to the ship fully laden. He agreed to cast lots, and he was condemned. Then the big fish did swallow him, and he had done acts worthy of blame. Had it not been that he repented and glorified Allah, he would certainly have remained inside the fish till the day of resurrection. But we cast him forth on the naked shore in a state of sickness. And we caused to grow over him a spreading plant of the gourd kind. And we sent him on a mission to 100,000 men or further. And they believed, so we permitted them to enjoy their life for a while. Now ask them their opinion. Is it that thy Lord has only daughters, and they have sons, or that we created the angels female, and they are witnesses thereto? Is it not that they say from their own invention, Allah has begotten children, but they are liars? Did Allah then choose daughters rather than sons? What is the matter with you? How judge ye? Will ye not then receive admonition, or have ye an authority manifest? Then bring ye your book of authority if ye be truthful. And they have invented a blood relationship between Allah and the jinns, but the jinns know quite well that they have indeed to appear before Allah's judgment seat. Glory to Allah. Allah is free from the things they ascribe to Allah. Not so do the servants of Allah, sincere and devoted. For verily, Neither ye nor those ye worship can lead any into temptation concerning Allah, except such as are themselves going to the blazing fire. Those ranged in ranks say, not one of us but has a place appointed, and we are verily ranged in ranks for service, and we are verily those who declare Allah's glory. And there were those who said, if only we had before us a message from those of old, we should certainly have been servants of Allah, sincere and devoted. But now that the Quran has come, they reject it, but soon will they know. Already has our word been passed before this to our servants sent by us, that they will certainly be assisted, and that our forces they surely must conquer. So turn thou away from them for a little while, and watch them how they fare, and they soon shall see how thou farest. Do they wish indeed to hurry on our punishment? But when it descends into the open space before them, evil will be the metan for those who were warned and heeded not. So turn thou away from them for a little while, and watch how they fare, and they soon shall see how thou farest. Glory to thy Lord, the Lord of honor and power. Allah is free from what they ascribe to Allah. And salam on the apostles, and praise to Allah, the Lord and cherisher of the worlds. Tao Te Ching, chapters 19 a 24. 19. End sagacity, abandon knowledge. The people benefit 100 times. End benevolence, abandon righteousness. The people return to piety and charity. End cunning, discard gain. Bandits and thieves no longer exist. These three things are superficial and insufficient. Thus, this teaching has its place. Show plainness, hold simplicity. Reduce selfishness, decrease desires. 20. Cease learning, no further worries. Respectful response and scornful response. How much is the difference? Benevolence and evil, how much do they differ? What the people fear, I cannot be afraid. What the people fear, I cannot be unafraid. So desolate, how limitless it is. The people are excited as if enjoying a great feast, as if climbing up to the terrace in spring. I alone am quiet and uninvolved, like an infant not yet smiling, so weary, like having no place to return. The people all have surplus, whilst I alone seem lacking. I have the heart of a fool indeed, so ignorant. Ordinary people are bright, I alone am muddled. Ordinary people are scrutinizing, I alone am obtuse. Such tranquility like the ocean, such high wind as if without limits. The people all have goals, and I alone am stubborn and lowly. I alone am different from them and value the nourishing mother, and value the nourishing more. Uno. The appearance of great virtue follows only the Tao. The Tao as a thing seems indistinct, seems unclear. So unclear, so indistinct. Within it there is image, so indistinct, so unclear. Within it there is substance. So deep, so profound, within it there is essence. Its essence is supremely real. Within it there is faith. From ancient times to the present, its name never departs. To observe the source of all things. How do I know the nature of the source? With this. 22. Yield and remain whole. Bend and remain straight. Be low and become filled. Be worn out and become renewed. Have little and receive. Have much and be confused. Therefore the sages hold to the one as an example for the world, without flaunting themselves, and so are seen clearly, without presuming themselves, and so are distinguished, without honoring themselves, and so have merit, without boasting about themselves, and so are lasting. Because they do not contend, the world cannot contend with them. What the ancients called the one who yields and remains whole, were they speaking empty words? Sincerity becoming whole and returning to oneself. 23. Sparse speech is natural, thus strong wind does not last all matan. Sudden rain does not last all day. What makes this so? Heaven and earth. Even heaven and earth cannot make it last. How can humans? Thus, those who follow the Tao are with the Tao. Those who follow virtue are with virtue. Those who follow loss are with loss. Those who are with the Tao is also pleased to have them. Those who are without virtue is also pleased to have them. Those who are without loss is also pleased to have them. Those who do not trust sufficiently, others have no trust in them. Those who are on tiptoes cannot stand. Those who straddle cannot walk. Those who flaunt themselves are not clear. Those who presume themselves are not distinguished. Those who honor themselves have no merit. Those who boast about themselves have Those who boast about themselves do not last. Those with the Tao can call such things leftover food or tumors. They despise them. Thus, those who possess the Tao do not engage in them. Alhamdulillah Rahman Rahim, Allah Wabham, Deus Nostra qui es in cielo, santificato nomen tuum, Vaheguru Sanam, Dao Kodao Fehung Dao. Ja, Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher gazanu bo mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'davai Torah. Kyrie eleison. Silva master sabrigadehem, sabe sata b'vodu sukitata. Fagabia, Ubuntu, Shabono, Frekako, Aquaba upenda namani umijaka. Shishe. Como si domo arigato, pedama yelo wokan toko doko shigun, gawi thank you for the blessings come with God. Ata jami yata fanami, aho, shanti, amen. Alhamdulillah Rahman Rahim, Allah Wabha, Deus Nostra qui es in celis, sanctificato nomen tuum, Vaheguru Sanam. Dao Kodao Fehung Dao. Ja. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Kyrie eleison. Silva master sabrigadehem, sabe sata b'vodu sukitata. Fagabia, Ubuntu, Shabono, Frekako, Aquaba upenda namani umijaka. Shishe, como se nida, domo arigato. Pedama yelo wokan toko adoko shingun. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Woman of God. Ata jame yata fanami. Aho. Shanti, amen. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, shalom. Zaijen, adios, de Jacaris, Asmudwo, Kela Ufred. One love and peace.